Hey, folks, if you're joining us right now, we have Brandon Graham of King City, Prophet, and a bunch of other amazing books on the stream.
Moonray.
Yeah. Yeah, actually, why am I doing your intro? You can just give your own intro. Yeah. So, yeah, Brandon, you want to introduce yourself to everybody?
Sure, yeah. I'm Brandon. I've been drawing comics my entire life, as far as I can remember. I announced to my mother when I was 7 I was going to do comics for a living, and I'm not letting go of it yet. And yeah, I did King City. I did a relaunch of Prophet. Been working on a video game comic book called Moonray the last couple of years, and I just released my diary collection called Surviving on Mars that I think Matt's got a copy of there.
Yep. Highly recommend all of them. Surviving on Mars, I thought was probably the most interesting, different thing you've ever done.
Oh, thanks. I'm doing a weird follow-up to it now where I'm trying to talk about things that are harder to talk about than what I put in there, which is we'll see. I'm kind of allowing myself to never see the light of day.
Well, you're working on you're like a not to just go crazy into your bibliography, but you're like an insane workhorse with comics, like just a font of creativity, which I think really comes across in Mars with seeing how many different styles you're kind of playing with, and all of the different ways that you can work, because it's totally different than, say, Moonray, which is a very, what you expect from Brandon in some sense, and then Surviving on Mars shows this far more like grounded side of you, which I thought was really, really cool seeing you working.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, it's interesting to kind of let your style evolve, and also I think a lot just being a fan of other artists. Like you want, it's like, if a new Frank Miller or Milo Manara comic comes out, it's like you there's certain things you expect, but you also want them to evolve. So I'm trying to put myself under those same standards.
Which is a high bar.
Yeah, but I feel like everything, when you try, at least when I try to do it myself, it always comes out weird. It's never one-to-one, so it's always like I've when I was working on Prophet, I kept describing to people as like me trying to do Miyazaki's Nausicaa and failing miserably, because you have this high bar, and I'm like, I'm trying to talk about these themes, but then your own version of it can come out pretty weird.
It's I think one of the things that I started to appreciate in your work with Moonray, took notice of more in Moonray, and it was funny. I'm putting my 2-year-old to bed, and she picks out the places you'll go, and I was thinking, there's a lot of like the way that he landscapes in that. I was like thinking about Moonray, because there's a lot of depth in those in that Dr. Seuss like landscapes that he has with all these weird shapes and stuff, and I was like, there's a lot of weird parallels to like the visuals between these two, which I don't know. It was just something I was thinking about. I was like, that's a weird serendipity that she pulls out this book, and I'm like thinking about Moonray while I'm reading it to her.
Yeah, well, Dr. Seuss stuff is really fantastic, and I think there's a certain type of art that I think of as like comic book tourism of places that don't exist, and I think that's kind of what I was doing with Moonray.
Yeah, which I mean, like I literally just can pull up any random spread in Moonray, and it's just all depth and crazy shapes and landscapes, which is highly recommended.
Thanks. I should explain that like Moonray was a video game that they came to me when it was kind of in early development, and the idea is that it's done on the Unreal Engine, which is the same thing that Fortnite is done on. So it's starting out as kind of a player versus player, like Street Fighter 2 style game, but the plan is to eventually make it this open world game that you can kind of wander through big green fields with floating orbs and everything. And so I wanted to kind of create this comic that really felt like what it would be like to just wander through an open world video game.
That's awesome.
What's that?
I was gonna say that's awesome and incredibly ambitious. Like it's very super exciting. Are you a gamer yourself?
I play some game. I was, when I was younger, like playing Street Fighter 2 was really important to me when I was a kid. Like if you weren't able to, you were less of a person if you couldn't play Street Fighter when I was 16. But I don't know. I always like hearing about video games, but like when Death Stranding came out, while I was drawing, I watched a 15-hour playthrough of it, and then I never actually played the game, so I can't claim to be a gamer, but I'm interested in it as a narrative device.
I mean, I think that's it. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead, Matt.
No, you go ahead.
I was gonna say I think Street Fighter 2 and Super Mario and a lot of those like really setting the ground stage of like narrative video game. But I think in the past decade or so, you're right. Like you could just literally watch people play. Like one of my favorite stories of the past couple of years is just The Last of Us 2.
Oh sure.
Which I don't know if you've like watched someone play through that story, but it's just fantastic.
Yeah, I have actually.
Oh yeah, it's an incredibly gripping story. Yeah, it's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good thing to do. Like sit on a couch while a friend of mine, a friend of yours will just play through a video game, and I can be like, oh, it's like a way to engage with something that they like a lot while actually doing what I do to process things.
Yeah.
Right. I was looking at. I had pulled up this. Because it's funny to me. Like I pulled out this multiple warheads I had, and God knows where, but. It's just funny because you have these same, some of these landscapes that you kind of go on to do in Moonray and here, and it's neat to see the change in your style and like how you've evolved as an artist over the years. I think a lot of it. I mean, you're using the same tools, right?
Yeah, mostly these Micron Pigma pens are what I've been using for most of my life.
That's wild. Like, did you ever mess around with other things, or have you always just been a Micron guy?
These are kind of my go-to. I've been slowly learning to use a brush.
Yeah.
In recent years, had an idea that I want to do some kind of European style brush comic, but I think I have to kind of either get used to it or change up a style a little bit to get used to it.
Yeah, I was wondering. Well, that was one of the things I was thinking about with Surviving on Mars is like, because you've got some, I think pencil drawings and things like that in there. Like it's not all finished the same way, and that got me thinking of like, oh, I would like to see Brandon tackle a like grounded, I don't know, crime story or something, or just a grounded drama in that pencil, looser style that you're working in there.
That would be fun to attempt.
What are you drawing tonight?
I was thinking of maybe like a Tintin with a Cardinal Maltese hat. I don't remember what his hat looks like.
Nice.
Hold on, I got one right here. When did you first discover Tintin? Here, I'll throw that.
Oh, nice. I mean, Tintin's got free memory for me. My parents were really into it.
Mm-hmm.
I can show here. I have a Tintin tattoo on my arm.
Oh, that's awesome.
Me and Joe Keating, friend of mine, when we were both working at Image, both got matching tattoos. And on this arm, I've got a Prophet tattoo, which is me and all the guys that worked on Prophet went and got, with the exception of Yanni, who's in Greece. The rest of us all got matching Prophet tattoos. So Simon Roy and Farrell Dalrymple both have them, and then Joseph Bergen, the colorist.
That was talk about like a load, like a stacked cast on that book. Because Farrell's stuff is awesome.
Farrell's incredible. Yeah, and I caught Simon Roy right when he was in art school, so it was like we're all powering the book off of his youthful vigor.
Well, I think was that coming out, Chris, when we were still working at Comixology?
Prophet?
Yeah, I think that was right. Like, because to me, that was like that was like a peak comics time. In like as far as like books that were coming out, like I feel like that's an era. A lot of people wax nostalgic about the 90s, and I'm like, no, it's that early mid-aughts that I feel like some of the best work was coming out.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, and I think Image had a particularly strong run. IDW was doing some great stuff. I remember writing marketing copy for Prophet. Like we were like, every week we had our new digest email with like all the books that were released on digital, and we had that little carousel. And I think Prophet was one of the books that we put through. I think King City was one. I remember reading like Morning Glories or like Lock and Key that way. It was just like whenever someone in our little bullpen, it was Matt or one of the other guys, was like, you should feature this one. And I was like, sure. And then I would just go read it.
Nice. Yeah, that was, I mean, I'm very biased because that was when I was in a very exciting time, but I did feel like that era of comics, there was a lot of, it felt like people were kind of getting away with doing a new fun styles of comics.
Yeah, I think so. I think that we are seeing that experimentation again in a lot of places, and that's fun. I know Sean was Living the Line publisher. Sean was just at Mocha, and he said he got like there was a lot of interest and stuff from people there. Unfortunately, I couldn't make it, but there's people doing interesting things today, I think.
Yeah, I was thinking that I get so immersed in older comics that I kind of don't pay a lot of attention to what's going on now. But you know, I find things that are new to me. Actually, I can show you guys. Oh, this is the thing that I've been really excited by lately. Is this Go with the Clouds North by Northwest? It's a manga that's and it's set in, I think it's set in Norway. It's like a Japanese transplant in Norway.
I thought he was in Iceland or something.
Maybe Iceland. I'm probably butchering the.
I just read the first volume because you praise it, and it took a little bit, and then I was like, I finally got to that last act, like the sort of the last chapter of the first volume, and then you finally figure out, oh, this is what it's about, and it was good. Like it kind of, I like how they can just pace things out like that in manga.
Yeah, it's a very slow burn.
Yeah.
But it does some things. What's that? That was volume 2.
Okay.
I think there's 6 out now. It does something that it does some things that I've never seen in comics before. Like there's this scene in one of the newer volumes where she illustrates how tea tastes by like showing leaves falling on water in this very specific way. And then there's a scene where the main character goes to see a musical performance, and while he's like sitting in the audience at this little basement bar, you see his hat blown off by wind, and suddenly he's like on this like icy tundra, and to show kind of what his feelings of how the music sounds. So it's really cool, like how auditory.
See, I feel like that the sort of idea of senses is something that you do play with in your work, at least with the idea of like food and things like that. Those systems always seem to come up in your work.
Yeah, tactile.
Learn that from somewhere, or?
Yeah. I think really specifically, I have an agenda for why I do comics, and a big part of it is conveying experience. And a big part of that is, you know, feelings of space and eating and all those things. I've been trying to make lists of experiences I haven't tried to catalog in comics yet, because I think that's a fun experiment to try. Yeah, I feel like the older I get, the less I'm into just like adventure narratives and plot, and the more I just kind of want to share, find ways to kind of take my life experience through science fiction and kind of share it with other people.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny that you say that, because you are drawing a Tintin right now, and I feel like that, like Tintin and Corto are both, well, they're both adventure, but they're also like travelogue books in a way.
Oh yeah, very much.
Which is, I think, one of the best parts of them is that you kind of get to experience a different place through the comic. That's a cool one. Where'd you get that one from?
Oh yeah, I was going through this Tintin book that I have, looking for I wasn't liking my sketch, so I was going to find a rough Tintin to. Sometimes I like doing art that's reacting to other art. Cool. Cover here.
on the topic of like just like lived experiences through science fiction. Matt turned me on to Jesse Lonergan when we were at Fan Expo Philly, and I really enjoyed Planet Paradise. Picked that book up on Matt's recommendation. That was a really good book. I don't know if you had a chance to look at it, Brandon.
I don't think I recognize the name, but I don't know that book.
I think you'd know his. I assume that you've seen his art. He did Hedra. He did a racing comic called Faster that I feel like you would dig. He does a lot of interesting things with his sequentials. Like there's his storytelling's really unique and interesting in ways that I think that you would appreciate. I feel like you and Carson could dig into like the formalist aspects of his storytelling.
Oh, cool. Who's publishing that one?
Faster came out through like I think Bulligan Press, but he had he's done a couple through Image. I think Planet Paradise was with Image. Hedra was with Image, and I think his new book is coming out from the same. They're the spin-off from First Second that is eventually going to republish THB.
Oh, that's exciting. Look at this madness of like a cow serving them all drinks here. Yeah, I'm really excited about that new THB.
I've been waiting for it for. Well, I tell people like, oh, I really like THB, and you know that they should read it, and then I'm also at the same time saying I'm not lending you my copies. They don't leave the house because they're too expensive to replace. So
yes, those also.
Was THB on like Comixology?
No.
Was it accessible? No, right?
It might have been pre-Comixology.
Yeah.
Oh, it definitely was. It definitely was. That's like I've had to hunt down all my copies on eBay, which is not ideal.
Yeah, there's so much good Pope that's out of print. I was just looking through Ballad of Dr. Richardson this morning.
I love that one.
That's really fantastic.
That's that like he managed to do these that like it's such like a small drama story, and it I don't know, it feels so important because of the way that he draws it. I don't know. I very much appreciate the like that the way that he experimented with form and all that stuff.
Yeah. I often think about like how a lot of my career has been trying to crawl out of Pope's shadow. I did a thing on the I'm working on this thing called Homunculus Dynasty for Living Line right now. It's a page from it.
Oh,
amazing.
It's kind of like a far future Frankenstein society.
Oh, that's awesome.
And I have this.
Is this like the vampire thing?
Yeah.
Okay.
I've been trying to figure out a non-cliched way to show vampires, and it keeps changing as I do more pages. But I did this scene in it where I have an intermission where I show, where I just show like classical musicians playing for a couple panels, just because I thought it would make the comic feel classy. And in the middle of drawing it, I was like, Pope did this in Scapo. Still doing it, but
that's funny.
Yeah, he's such a powerhouse of ideas.
Yeah. Well, and also like the way that they're and I think that I pulled the way that they're presented always, and I do think that you've messed around a lot with style, and I guess this comes from you're trying to pull yourself out of Paul's shadow comment, but
I should imagine it's like a dozen people's shadows too, because there's Lunara and Mobius and Matt Howard. But I'm always like, I want to be as good as the people I grew up on, but they're so good, you know.
I just want to be like halfway decent. But there's like a freedom to experiment with like form and in the medium, and I think that you at least you play around with that as well. So, or were you drawing that new book, that homunculus thing, the vampire book? You were drawing that 2-up, weren't you?
Yeah, it's pretty big. I should show. So here's kind of one of my standard. This is like one of my standard pages, 11 by 17. It's a Betty and Veronica that I just did. Archie Comics had me draw her butt smaller, which I thought was funny. Also very reasonable on their part. You know, yeah. So here's the Homunculus Dynasty pages next to it.
Oh, good.
So
yeah, they're pretty big.
Not twice the size, but certainly bigger.
So you sold like one piece on Nerdcrawler so far, right?
Three, I think.
I think a few.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. Nice.
Yeah, everything new I've put up there is sold, luckily.
Oh, really?
That's awesome. We'd love to hear it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's
I put up a bunch of pages and priced them higher than the kind of new commission stuff I was doing. Because yeah, I did a Sexica from Multiple Warheads, and then I did a Rogue Savage Lands from X-Men, and then a Ninja Turtle I sold.
Nice. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, with April and the gang. Yeah.
Yeah. The next one I'm doing is this kind of Silverhawks cheesecake one.
Love it.
I don't know why I'm pulling it upside down.
And then I'm just rotating through all the featured ones that are available in the buy now. Couple of sequential pages, couple of signed books. But yeah, I mean,
Surviving on Mars is up there. I think you got a couple copies listed, right?
Yeah, and I try to do fairly decent sketches in any of them if I can find space.
That was a funny thing that I realized when I did Laid Out House on Fire is that, well, and actually I constantly do this where I just make all the end papers black and then there's nowhere to sign the book. Unless if you have a good white pen, and there's no such, at least I haven't found a good white pen to use on anything. Yeah. So anyway, so the next book I think I'll try to remember to not do all black. Yeah,
it's a weird thing to try to remember though, because I've definitely fallen into that myself. Like for the Prophet books, I would be signing just on the logo on the cover because there's no room.
I mean, it's a nice problem to have. The fact that anyone wants your signature on a book is kind of nice. So
yeah, it's really a weird thing being a professional cartoonist because it's I feel like you don't think about your audience. At least I don't think about the audience until that moment where you're sitting in front of them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Has there been a particular fan reaction or interaction that you've had that you're shocked by or found particularly memorable?
Sure. I mean, there's been a lot of anytime anyone shows up with tattoos of my work is pretty.
Yeah, sure.
It's pretty nuts. Yeah, there's been I did a signing in San Francisco recently, and that was such a cool, fun turnout because I've been I think I hadn't really had a big signing for a while, and that one was just it's always cool when it turns into a party and there's just a ton of people there and people visiting that I haven't seen in years. Yeah, there's been a bunch. I did one in Seattle at Cosmic Monkey, and I had, I think 4 ex-girlfriends showed up at the same signing.
Wow.
And I took it as a positive sign. At least they're all still talking to me,
Yeah. And amicable interactions where they were supportive or more
no one showed up.
Here's your old shit. Get out of my head. Yeah.
Yeah, that was cool. I had someone showed up. A friend of mine who used to work at Oni passed away a couple years ago, and somebody showed up and brought a piece of art that I'd done in collaboration with him. So that was really cool to get.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, those things are always really, you show up and you're just I'm just talking to people about what's going on in X-Men this month, and then sometimes people show up with these really heartfelt connections to your work, and it's a lot to take in.
Yeah.
And then you have to be next person,
Yeah. Your wonderful 2-minute story, and then move on through. Yeah, that's challenging for sure.
Yeah, and I feel as cartoonists we're not really designed to be public people, so it's a weird situation to be in, behind a table and meeting people who like your work, when I've gotten much better in recent years about just human interaction.
Yeah.
I live in Las Vegas now, and I don't really know. The only cartoonists I really know out here is J.H. Williams and James Robinson are out here,
Mm-hmm.
writer. And then my friend Joel, who's just like a guy that works at the airport and does diary comics, but mostly it's like kind of outside of a comic book scene more than I'm used to. And so that's been interesting to have to engage with people that don't read comics for the first time in their life.
Yeah. Is the what's your local comic book shop in Vegas?
Oh, it's an alternate reality. It's a really fantastic shop. It's run by a guy named Ralph who manages to like keep this like his there's like 14 comic shops in Las Vegas, which is insane. I don't know how that works, but Ralph really makes alternate reality. It's like this kind of clubhouse where you show up and there's I go there every week and there's always new books. Like
That's awesome.
Like it's a dangerous place to go in when you're trying to save money.
Are you reading anything that's coming out currently, or are you mostly bin diving? Because I mean, if people should follow your Instagram because it's always you seem to always be pulling insane things out of the back issue bins. But
oh yeah, I'm reading. I was reading the J-Bone and James Robinson are doing a book about a bellhop and a magical hotel that's been fun. I'm spacing on the name. I'm picking up that one. I get my friends' comics. Like Farrell Dalrymple just came out with a new Robot Todd comic. It's really good. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Simon Roy's been sending me some of his new stuff. I've been reading in PDF, his weird clone science fiction series. I think he's running on his Patreon. But I'm really it's funny. I'm kind of at a funny place where like I'm paring my interests down differently. Like I hung out recently with the manager of Golden Apple in LA, Joe's a friend of mine, and he was trying to sell me really hard on the new like Batman and new Wonder Woman. And I was just like, I'm just not in a place in my life where I can read a Wonder Woman comic unless it's got like a tiger lawyer or something in it. And I'm not to disparage people that like those comics. I'm like, I've read like 1,000 Wonder Woman comics now. I think I've had enough.
Yeah. Well, it's tough because it's like they actually, I mean, like the Batman one, they've got Dragotta doing the art, and I like his art quite a bit.
Sure.
You're right. Like after a certain point, it's like, okay, I've seen it. Like I've read all of the stories of these characters that I'm gonna need to read, and I'm always looking for other things at this point, you know.
Yeah, I see that now. And then if we got a Batman job, I would be like, finally, a hot new take on Batman. Sorry, what were you saying?
I think it's also just getting old, and you're like, okay, well, like I don't know, action, sort of just straight actions type things just aren't really entirely what I'm interested in.
Yeah, there's a part of, although my brain always goes to action with the things I write, even if I want to not.
Is it because comics as like a medium, like it feels like if there isn't some sort of physical conflict, it doesn't feel like it's a comic? I would attribute it more to my own stupid brain of like I'm always just so set in like I can sit around and complain about Batman comics, but my formative stuff, it's like Dark Knight Returns was so. I think that's it about Batman too. I feel like Dark Knight Returns is the end Batman, and between that and Batman Year One, I feel like everybody who does a new Batman comic is competing with peak Frank Miller for me, so it's not fair. Yeah.
You know, pick up a comic, you pick up Absolute Batman, and you're like, this isn't as good as Dark Knight Returns. Never mind. It's not fair,
It is unfair because you're right. It's like there's nothing. It's impossible to beat peak Frank. Yeah,
and especially peak Frank Miller, like wrapped in a blanket of my own nostalgia. Like it's just, it's not fair on multiple levels.
Yeah, peak Frank inked by peak Klaus Janson with peak Lynn Varley. You're not doing much better than that.
Yeah. The one time I interacted with Klaus Janson was when I was doing porn comics for a living. He used to go up to DC Comics to drop off stuff with Bob Schreck as an attempt to try to get work there in the early 2000s. And all the new pages I was doing were just porn stuff I was doing for NBM at the time. And Shrek you can't hurt Shrek's feelings. You know, he's an old pervert. So I just show up and be like, here's my porn comics. Got any work for me? And he'd be like, ha ha ha, this is funny. Get out of my office. I have no work for you. And one time I was leaving, and as I was leaving, he was like, this is Klaus Janson. And I was like, oh my God, it's so good to meet you. And I'm walking away, and I hear Shrek say, come look at this guy's porn. I'm like, no, don't show one of my childhood heroes I was doing like sexy schoolgirl comics or something.
Got to start somewhere though, right? You
got to
start.
It's funny because I just can't picture Klaus with a porn comic.
Yeah, I don't think he sought out more of my work after that.
He wasn't like, I want to get my inks on this guy.
Yeah. It's like, give me this guy's number. We have to talk.
Yeah. You guys are talking though about just like Prime DC, and I saw an interesting note that Absolute Batman is now, I think, outselling Spider-Man, I think, which was like a pretty big shift. And then the new format, like DC, it really figured out this like, pocketbook manga size format is helping them move more units. I'm just curious, like, Brandon, what are your thoughts about, the industry evolving and finding new formats or finding new ways to succeed,
Yeah, well, I think it probably doesn't matter if I show my hand in this, but one of the projects I'm working on now is essentially I'm trying to break into the kind of bookstore manga market by making. This kind of returning to Paul Pope. I remember him talking at one point about him wanting to make comics that were sexy enough so women wanted to read them. And so I had this idea for this story, and one of my edicts I've set for it is I want to make something that's more sexual and more violent and has more drugs in it than anything else I've ever done, because I want to be as American as possible to compete on the manga market. We'll see. It might crash and burn. It's an attempt.
Would you size it like a manga?
Yeah.
Okay.
That seems to be the format that people are really liking.
Yeah, certainly. I actually have this book here. I think it's by the artist Oh Great. And I've been trying to go through he has much more sparse pages than I'm used to. And I've been trying to go through this and try to figure out how I want to change my storytelling style to fit this format better.
Is it a panel count question? Is it what do you think?
Yeah, I think it's panel count, and I'm also going to draw it smaller.
Okay.
Yeah, because a lot of these pages are just 4-panel with big faces.
Yeah.
Big splash pages, double page spreads. But the format is like you get 180 pages, right? Like I burned through Naruto that way, and I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, certainly.
Yeah. Also got it digitally because I couldn't have the shelf space.
Oh yeah, I read all of Urasawa's stuff digitally because it was so there's so much of it and it's so good.
Yeah. A part of me wants to get the big Naruto. I guess it's not their absolute editions, but effectively it's like these massive books to put on your shelf. But it's tough to find the shelf space. And then now I really want to finish Berserk.
Oh yeah.
But also another thick, huge, manga to bite into.
Yeah, those ones are, because those are I don't even know how many Naruto volumes they made in the end. Did they make it to 30?
I think it was 72.
Oh, that's nuts.
Yeah, it was nuts. And then I was on the fence for such a long time, but I was, raising my kid and trying to find something to read while trying to put him to sleep. And my wife was like, just buy the first one, just buy the first volume. And if you like it, you just keep buying it. And I think I ended up just buying the whole thing, but it wasn't Comixology anymore, but it was Amazon, whatever, Unlimited that it's called now.
Right. Those things are addictive. Like you can't.
Yeah. All right. Boop. Yeah. Click again.
Yeah.
You decided to read Naruto, and I read all the Eastman Laird turtles when my daughter was born. That's what I. Yeah. Same way, digitally comics, because I never read them. Yeah. I never read them, and finally was like, you know what, I'm gonna do that.
and quite incredibly, Worlds Colliding, IDW has a TMNT Naruto crossover book right now.
Of course.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's a weird one. Is it like a time travel thing?
I'm not sure. Like I tried to read the little synopsis, and it sounds like it's just the turtles arrive in Hidden Leaf Village or something like that. Like it's pretty weird. But comics, folks, right? Like we could just play with reasons, I suppose.
Yeah, I was thinking of the Turtles Cerebus crossover that was just like a magic time orb or something like that.
Yeah.
That's I think I was talking to Sean of Living the Line, because I was telling him to get some of the books and stuff up on Nerdcrawler, and he said he might list his. He did a cover for they did that recent printing of the Turtles Cerebus crossover issue.
Oh yeah,
he did a cover for that, and I think he's gonna put the art up for sale. Nice. So that's a cool one.
Oh, nice.
And you did one as well,
right?
Yeah,
I think
Carson did one.
Carson, yeah, I think Michael Dooney did one as well.
Yeah,
and some cool people. Does that mean that Cerebus is in the same universe as Naruto?
Yeah. Get.
I can't wait for the triple crossover.
Get a fax out to Dave. Tell him to start working on. He has to read all.
Fantastic.
I'm pretty pumped for. I don't know if you guys like going back to our video game topic. I think they're making Ronin, like the last Ronin, as a video game, very like God of War esque.
Oh, fascinating.
Yeah, huh. I was like, that should be pretty cool.
I've been going back and reading the original Ronin series just because, like, structurally, really fascinating. Like, I think it's a science fiction story to kind of set something in the past that's kind of a simpler, or rather a version that people understand, and then taking those themes in science and moving in the future is such a cool way to kind of handhold someone into a weirder world. So I'd be interested in reading I only read like one issue of the sequel.
Yeah.
Are you talking? Well, so Chris was talking about the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles last Ronin.
Oh, sorry, I just thought it was
Frank Miller Ronin, and I knew the difference.
That's right. Yeah, I forgot that they did kind of the Dark Knight Returns version of Ninja Turtles, basically. Right?
Yes, right. Sorry,
that's exactly what it was.
Okay, sorry.
But the Ronin book 2, the thing that I think that they did interesting.
We're talking Frank Miller's Ronin at this point.
I'm talking about Frank Miller's Ronin.
Okay.
Is that because this goes back to the sort of trying to the manga market, is that they printed they have a hardcover sort of same size as 300 edition, right?
Okay.
Because the whole book was laid out in spreads, so or like all the art was a double page spread, so they have that, and then they also printed it in a manga size as well, and the manga sized one, when I've seen it in the wild, is shelved with manga, which I think is, because I feel like that's almost more what you want with any of these experiments, is like, I want to make sure that when someone's looking for manga, they see my book, and my book is not shelved with, like, if you go into a Barnes & Noble, the sort of, you have manga, and then you basically have, like, superhero comics, The Walking Dead, Invincible, Saga. And then, like, you're just sort of in that mishmash, and that's, that's what, like, the Barnes & Noble graphic novel section is that.
Yeah, sure. I do think that just taking comics and shrinking them isn't quite the way to do it. I think you really have to because my theory is that the readers expect a different type of comic, and so if you do them as dense as superhero comics, they're just gonna feel cluttered.
Yep,
I agree. I think that the low panel count helps a lot, because I draw mine at 11 by 14, and I've been with the new book that I've been working on, like, and I think it helps you actually make more pages, is if your panel count never exceeds like 5, except for in very specific circumstances.
Oh, certainly.
You can go a lot. I think you can go faster, and I'm not gonna, you know, I'm not trying to put myself anywhere remotely on anyone else's level, but you can. I think you can work a little bit quicker with the smaller page and the lower panel count, and like I do.
Are you
think
doing?
it's easier
Is
to
your
read.
book the same size as your last one?
I don't know what I'm gonna do to finish, like the trim size. I think I might make it a hair bigger, but
Okay.
that's I want to but my goal is to get it to like 200 pages. And like it doesn't matter how I get there, like because I think that like you said
Sure.
with manga, you can just add like pacing pages, and you're not, if you're working for that like longer page count, you don't have to worry about like I'm stuck at 24 pages and I need to cram so much information into it. Like you can just throw in a couple pages of trees, and it sort of adds to the mood and the atmosphere, and like it also makes the book thicker.
Yeah, I think your stuff has a really cool, unique pacing where it doesn't feel like I feel like you draw comics like a novelist or something. Like it
I
really.
think it's the video editor brain, honestly. I appreciate it because I'm always just trying to think of like I think in like terms of time. I think is like how much time does this scene need to take, and like time is in pages because I don't have words in my books usually. So like like you can write words in your comics, and so that helps slow people down when you're reading, and I don't have that.
Oh, is this one silent?
No, but it'll probably have like 100 words in it total. Like House on
Okay.
Fire had, maybe 200 words total. So like,
Yeah, kind of back to I think House and Fire is a really cool example of using fictional mechanisms, I'll say, to create to capture a feeling that you're going through.
yeah, I appreciate that.
I think it'll be really interesting. Like it might be like I don't know if I can think of another pandemic comic that feels like that horrible feeling.
Yeah, I think it's the only one. I don't think anyone really.
Yeah, I did my book Rain Like Hammers around the same time, and people connected with it as a pandemic comic, but it was just a depression comic. It wasn't quite as animal.
It just happened to be during.
Yeah,
Which
yeah.
Rain
Like,
Like
oh, what a
Hammers
bummer.
was, I think I had picked that up. Which if everyone ever, I recommend. I'll hold it this one. I'll hold it over here. I recommend that people pick Rain Like Hammers up. I thought it was like, because I had only before Rain Like Hammers had come out. The last thing I'd read was like, I think Multiple Warheads, and I thought it was, this very mature, interesting. It like Prophet's very genre, and it's easy to, it's an act, it's based off a Rob Liefeld property, so like your headspace isn't like, isn't super deep when you go into it. I don't think, but
Right.
But I thought Rain Like Hammers was like that one. When I read it, to me, it marked a huge shift, and I think I've seen it play out in Moonray, and obviously in Surviving on Mars, where it's they're adult comics in a way that's emotionally mature. That I think that's more what I'm looking for in comics now, is like adult.
Oh, thanks.
And not adult, and like we're just using swear words and showing a lot of nudity and violence.
Sure, sure.
But like adult themes, which I think is, I think that's something that is, by and large either missing sometimes in comics or forgotten about. Like
Yeah, very much so. Something. What were you saying, Matt?
No, I finished my thought.
just had a because something I think about a friend of mine when we were teenagers said that at different points in your life you have to find different sources of fuel, and I often think about that in making comics. Yeah, it is strange. It is. There's a lot of interesting things about how the comic store comics are kind of like they are grown-up children's comics done for adults now, and it's kind of for good or ill, because there's like I read Dark Knight Returns when I was a 10-year-old or something, younger maybe, but it like resonates more and more the older I get.
Yeah.
And so that's definitely that, and watching things like that are definitely like comics kind of from superheroes that have become they're made for adults, or about adult themes, I should say.
Yeah, but they were still even when you read them as a kid, they were those books still held some. They have enough of a cool factor that I think makes them readable when you're young. Watchmen, not so much to me. There were way too many words in Watchmen, and I didn't really appreciate it.
My big shame is I've never read Watchmen once in my entire life, but I read Dark Knight Returns like 20 times.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like Dark Knight Returns, that's like a comfort food book for me. Like I can sit down and flip through it anytime. When I want to, since you're working on the Tintin, what are the things that you respond to on Tintin? Because it's actually I'm hesitant to admit to it. I've only read very little Tintin.
Well, my main connection to Tintin lately is during the pandemic I did a read through of all of them because I hadn't in years, and it kind of made me realize how much I'd taken from Tintin just from reading them as a child. But one of the things that I really there's a Tintin cartoon adaptation where they take out all the opium and racism and injuries, and it's less fun, but it's also like Tintin's such a weird product of its era, but it kind of doesn't make sense sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
I should qualify. Like Tintin's like a 16-year-old boy reporter who starts in like the 30s, I think, and then he's part of the first mission to the moon. Oh, basically, so like in the 40s when Belgium was occupied by Nazi Germany, so Tintin follows reality until then, and then when he was working for a paper which was taken over by Nazis, he deviated from reality. Like basically he did comic books, like he had comics critical of Japan before World War II, and then as soon as it happened, Tintin stopped talking about the war. So I think for good or ill, I think it's the one with the big mushroom that I'm spacing on the name of on the cover.
Oh, that's isn't that the Tintin Goes to the Moon, the mushroom one? Or is it a different
it's
one?
For that one. It's basically an asteroid crashes.
Yeah.
And there's all these like giant mushrooms that grow really quickly on the asteroid, and that's the first one that happens outside of reality.
Mm-hmm.
Deviates. I think I started off on the tangent about how weird Tintin's life is. Like he's a reporter, but he writes once in the first book, and he's a child, but he has no family, and he has no last name.
And
so there's all these weird.
He also doesn't seem to actually he has his own house and stuff. Like he's really set up.
He has his own apartment, and later on he moves in with Captain Haddock, who's just like canonically a unhinged alcoholic. So that part of Tintin I think is really fun. Just the weird things that don't quite make sense, like when you read in the later books and they bring up that they'll be like, you're Tintin, the famous boy reporter who's been to the moon, and how strange it is in that reality when the moon landing had happened and they just don't acknowledge its existence in Tintin. Maybe that's just, I just enjoy the cartooning too.
Yeah.
Just like I think that Hergé was doing a really interesting thing where he was making very Franco-Belgian comics while trying to emulate a lot of what was going on in Japan at the same time with woodblock prints.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you look at Japanese woodblock prints from that era, it just like you see there's Tintin backgrounds. Like he was like pulling so much from them, and that kind of cross pollination I think is really exciting, because I think that's where a lot of my style comes from, as I'm trying to draw like from American comics and Japanese comics and European comics at the same time, and pull aspects that all kind of speak to me of that. And like another cool era for that is I think when Mobius came out, he was very influenced by American comics and the American underground comics specifically, and then his work got over to Japan, and you see like Mobius influencing guys like Miyazaki.
Right.
Yeah, then back and forth to the point where like Mobius named one of his daughters Nausicaa.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of. I mean, I guess there's definitely a lot of Mobius in your work, but I think it's. I mean, it's the sci-fi stuff really, like less the blueberry Mobius, which is I think that's more Gerard, right, or Giroux. I can't pronounce it. Like
Right.
He's not Mobius when he's doing blueberry.
I like that weird kind of like mix that he gets to, because it is, still the same Frenchman. It's just he's kind of switching up his style a little bit, and it is a different, presenting himself as a different person.
Yeah. Well, and even like when he gets credited as Mobius in the Young Blueberries, they don't look like. He's still doing the very like bande dessinée style, right?
Oh.
Yeah, it's very.
This
it's
one's
much linier.
Yeah, this is one of the.
Which one have you got there?
I've got Young Blueberry 1, because he's credited as Mobius on this one. The color is, like, the reproduction is terrible. This is the Epic, or no, this is Comcat Comics printing. It's almost impossible to read because the color is so weird in it. And then I have this.
I've got this one here too.
Which one's that one? Young Blueberry? I don't have that one.
The Comcat, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I see what
right?
you're
Isn't the
printing
color
is like
weird?
yeah, they're like mad at comics the way it's printed.
Yeah, like
This is the I wonder if Comcat Comics is just, it looks like the same logo as Catalan Communications, that did a bunch of stuff in the 80s as well.
So this is more
Okay.
like where I think that you're like, this is an Arzak, right?
Oh yeah, that's
To me,
the stuff. I mean, yeah, specifically for me, it was the. Let me see if I can find it. Yeah, that on a star was really the one that
that's what I was
kind of lit
thinking.
a fire.
Nice.
Yeah.
When did you find those? You think?
Basically, when Marvel put these out, it must have been '86, I think.
Okay.
83. So yeah, I was born in '76, so I wasn't quite 10. My older brother is an artist who reads comics too, so he was buying these things.
No, that helps.
So, but here's a fun thing. I always like pointing out to people the original Star Wars Imperial probe droid that shows up in these.
Mm-hmm.
You can see it by my finger here. It's really tiny.
That's where they stole it from.
So I've got tape and cat vomit on the Mobius comics now.
Brandon, one thing I was curious about, you were talking about your own stab at like making like a manga-sized format. Are you, and then you talked about like changing your panel layouts or panel counts. Are you also changing like the paper that you're using to like adjust accordingly?
Yeah, I think everything. I think it has to be kind of a new evolution of what I do, to because it's kind of going back to Paul Pope. He would talk sometimes about how he would talk about manga like it was a totally different art form from comics, which I think was um, him being a little romantic about it. But I like that idea of that romanticism of trying to approach it like you're, the difference between filming a TV show and filming a movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Paul Pope being romantic. That's that's what his work is, very romantic. That's what it is.
Yeah.
I do think that there is there's a lot to that where it's like the manga is very much a different set of expectations. But he did you ever work in, because I know that was, I don't know if it was like predated you, or because him and a number of other cartoonists of that time weren't they all, I can't remember which manga publisher, but didn't they all, like, he did a stint, yeah, didn't he do a stint there but a lot of stuff really never saw the light of day? Like, did you ever do any work for like Kodansha, or was that before you?
Yeah, that was I was a teenager working for Antarctic Press back then.
Okay.
Which are still around.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that happening, and they behind me on this messy shelf, I've got a book called Rosetta where they reprinted some of the Pope manga pages.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he did this because I think what eventually became 100% started as that. And also he did this version of THB called Super Trouble, which was made specifically for that.
Yeah, I think they might have reprinted that stuff in the one trick ripoff collection that they did at Image. So okay. I put too many shadows on this Cordo face.
It's looking great.
And now there's no way out. Is it I think that, like, you can get away, you can do are you doing the old man Tintin thing? Did you put
I always troubled him.
Yeah. I feel like there's some characters that are very, very difficult to capture in a style not of their creator. And I think that Cordo is one of those guys that never quite feels right whenever I try to draw him. Like, it just doesn't.
Have you seen the Bastian Vives Eves?
Yeah.
His porn?
Yeah,
his Cordo book?
It's so different. Like, he's not. I mean, he's Cordo, and it's set in like modern day, and he's not like wearing the outfit.
Yeah, he gave him a baseball cap, so that was a strange choice.
Yeah, I mean, but it works because it's set in, it's set current, so like he would look silly walking around in his full, captain guard while doing drug deals.
Pull it off. He'd be like a juggalo wearing a trench coat.
Yeah. What do you have it? Do you have any of them? The two?
Yeah, I've got.
He only did two.
The only Bastian Vives I've got within arm's length is Petit Paul, which probably wouldn't go over too well.
Did you read Last Man? That actually, speaking more of the manga thing.
Oh yeah,
that's like the perfect like Euro manga blend in my opinion.
Yeah, Last Man was really, really interesting. Yeah, I'd be interested in. Yeah, I guess because I keep whenever I talk about kind of the manga stuff, I keep going back to Scott Pilgrim being the last time that it was really cracked by Westerners. But yeah, I think Last Man is the real one that I should be thinking of.
Well, it's because like Last Man retains the Europeanness of it. Like it is still very. I mean, there's three guys on it, but all the figures are very Vives. But like it doesn't look like it's Scott Pilgrim. I feel like there's enough like anime manga influence in his art where like I can see the crossover like artistically makes more sense, like is more obvious, whereas Last
Sure.
Man still, you know, it looks like any other Vivez book.
Yeah, but it feels structurally more like a manga than Scott Pilgrim does, which is interesting. Like it feels like it's like a Dragon Ball book.
Oh yeah. Well, there's always, you know, well, I mean, similar to a Dragon Ball though, like it's all like, you know, there's the fight tournament thing and
Yeah.
But is there like 20 pages of them breathing and charging up?
No.
Yeah,
No.
no. It's a really funny book in that it's like Dragon Ball has this Toriyama did this interesting thing, especially with Dr. Slump, where he made. I always think of his comics as like what a teenager would actually want to read, but not what their parents would want them to read sometimes. You know, like in Dragon Ball, there's all the like nudity jokes and like you know, the pig guy that wishes for a pair of like women's underwear.
Yep.
Which is stuff that no mom wants their kid reading, but I think like a 10-year-old would think would be the funniest thing in the world. And Last Man's similar to that, but it has this really funny thing where it feels very earnest and sweet, and then every once in a while there's be a shower scene with a woman with cartoonishly large breasts.
Yep.
Okay, France, calm down.
We actually, someone in the chat, Seedle from our community, he just called out. It's notable that Sunrise won't even let a Western team do a Kickstart Gundam.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. If either of you have thoughts on that.
No,
Was it a Gundam?
Seedle, do you have more context? Would love to hear more, but I think the point being like that like Western teams trying to adapt manga is particularly challenging.
Yeah, that makes sense, I guess. There's a couple. I know Sid Mead designed a Gundam at one point, which is worth looking at because it's so weird to see, you know, the Blade Runner artist doing that kind of stuff. But yeah, I'd be interested. I mean, it's a weird time. I have some feelings about how the American scene is kind of like we don't really make art celebrities like we used to.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like we have a couple that are almost like despite the community, you know, like a Sean Gordon Murphy or a Frank Joe or those guys that are like surviving out of sheer tenacity.
Yeah.
But it's there hasn't been like a rallying behind a big like kind of art star in a while, I feel like. I mean, there's a couple. I guess there's Zoe Thorogood is killing it right now.
Yeah, who's also heading to Como very soon. Seedle elaborated. He said there are 2 Kickstarters that are approved under the Gundam name, but then both were yanked after 2 weeks by Sunrise.
Oh,
yeah. They were trying to get made and then they got pulled.
Huh.
I didn't know about those.
Yeah, I'd be interested in looking up what they look like too. Because I mean, I feel like it does say something that they let Naruto do a Ninja Turtles crossover.
Yeah.
But it might just be a little, it's like, print 11 copies of that. We don't care, you know.
Well, and so when I was at Emerald City, I was chatting with 2 of the manga artists that were with Comic Sketch Art, and it sounds like through the handler that they were with, yeah, there's just cultural norms that I was not as accustomed to between like manga IP and the country in general versus like American Western comics. Yeah, there's like, yeah, I mean, I'm sure you both know more than I do, but I was just surprised by the sensitivity of like, no, like only approved things and only from approved creators can be done, and things like commissions are even risky things, like to publicly say like you're taking commission and you would draw that characters. I was like, oh, that's different. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, there's so much stuff about Japan's comic culture that doesn't make sense over here. I think like their whole fan comic market is really fascinating. How they'll kind of allow people to take copyrighted comics and print up hundreds of them and sell them. But there's this like, it feels like, at least my very crude idea is there's a lot of things in Japan that if you do it with the right level of respect, they allow things to happen. Like I know for a lot of their like sexual censorship, they have these tiny little bars that sometimes they'll put over things that cover nothing, but it's almost just this acknowledgement of like, we understand there's censors that have to look at this. We're not trying to be dicks. It's very fun. Maybe it's kind of similar because in America we have like most of the comics go through, or at least until recently went through Diamond distribution,
Mm-hmm.
and there was like a Diamond code that you had to follow to not be an adult book. Then you had books like Saga that were really successful, and they would kind of break the code pretty brazenly, but everybody liked Saga and nobody wanted to shut it down, so they're like, keep going through Diamond. We're all like this.
And then who knows who will own Diamond in the next month or two or whatever it may be.
Yeah, that'll be interesting.
Hopefully Todd.
Hopefully Todd. That would I'm going to WonderCon next week. I don't know, Brandon, are you heading there too?
I wish I was.
But Todd has a panel, and so I'm curious to see if I don't know if a deal could materialize that quickly, but it would be pretty cool if he announced that something related.
Fascinating. I got to talk to him one-on-one for like a couple hours once, and just like picked his brain mostly about action figures. He's just a very fascinating guy. I remember I was so focused. He had a Spawn choker and a Spawn ring he was wearing at the time, and I was thinking about just how. So you should look out for those. See if he's got Spawn jewelry on his. Yeah. Like, he has a very interesting kind of business brain about how he approaches things. Like, it was the famous story about him getting the baseball and touring around the country with it, and people thinking that was an idiotic move, but he just did it to attract celebrities, like sports celebrities, to come out so he could get toy deals with them, and then I think sold the baseball as a tax write-off.
That's genius.
Yeah, it's very interesting. So I hope he buys Diamond, but I feel like a guy that is as business savvy as him, I'd be fascinated at what if he has any kind of secondary objectives for, because I feel like if you explain to someone that you're going to buy Diamond, like him telling his wife, like, I got this idea, that seems like you're just, we could just dig a hole in the back and throw money into it.
Yeah. Todd, we already have a money pit in the backyard. You can throw it in there.
Yeah.
Cedal, we're talking about Todd McFarlane. But Cedal also wrote in the chat, are you familiar with Tomahawk Angel?
I don't think I know that one.
That sounds like a Brandon book.
Comic. Yeah, he said it's the only modern Western comic in the quality and spirit of the best manga. Looks like it was published by trade paperback in 2023. Looks like.
Tomahawk Angel sounds like something that you would read, though. Like,
it's published from Dark Horse. Dark Horse manga.
Yeah.
Huh. Look that up.
Yeah, thanks for sharing, Cedal.
I read previews every month, and I try to retain this stuff, but it's amazing when I don't. I should show off before I forget. I should show off the couple sketches that I brought out before we started talking.
Yeah.
I got a Nara drawing from when I got to go to Italy and hang out with him.
Oh, that's awesome.
It's really fun.
Were you in Italy for like a convention?
Yeah, I went to the Lucca convention over there. It's like in a walled off medieval town that they have like a Corto Maltese statue, and they have like Milo Manara's like handprints.
Really?
That's amazing.
Yeah, it was fantastic. Yeah, it was really cool, and yeah, it's a lot. It was. I got so enamored with Italy when I was there that I ended up in Hong Kong after there, and I was eating Italian food in Hong Kong like a crazy person. But yeah, that was such a cool trip. Yeah, and Manara's editor Diego was really sweet to me. He would after the convention meeting him, he would like go out to dinner with Manara and just send me like a photo of him waving and being like, the maestro says hi. So that was really exciting to me.
That's amazing.
The other big one I have here is this Tezuka sketch.
That's awesome.
And what's the story behind that one?
This was given to me. There's a Canadian animator named Marv Newland who did this very short, famous piece of animation called Godzilla versus Bambi, which is Bambi.
Great title.
Yeah, it's literally just it's probably on YouTube. You can just look it up, where it's Bambi just eating grass, and then a giant foot comes down and kills Bambi. He'd gone to Japan in the 80s and got to hang out with Tezuka and talked about how he was just like a celebrity walking down the street.
That's amazing.
And like people would just like honk their horns and yell at him as they're going by. But when I found this, I was going through a studio, we're helping him clean it up, and I found this, and I didn't think it was real. And he said, if it doesn't have my name on it, you can have it. You're not serious.
You're like, oh shit! Wow, that's amazing.
And one of my childhood friends is married to a Japanese woman, and she was really into. She was like very clearly like, he should give that to me. An American shouldn't own that. You can fight me for it.
Cedal commented that the Spider-Man cover controversy with Manara was what allowed him to discover Manara. So definitely a wealth transfer, he said, to Manara that way.
At the time of the convention, I should mention that Frank Cho was over there too, and that's when he'd started his series of kind of pushback covers, his outrage covers.
Oh yeah.
So Manara was very enamored with him, and they were hanging out a lot of the show.
I was gonna say I can't imagine those two together. Manara's interesting.
Manara normally goes to Como, or maybe he goes like every other year. I know Frank is going this year with a bunch of folks. Lake Como Comic Art Festival.
Oh, right, in Italy.
Yeah, I think Manara might go next year, but I don't think he's on the list this year.
That's exciting. I got to get back on the convention circuit. I've been out of it I haven't done conventions much in the last like 5 or 10 years. So
yeah, pandemic was rough.
Yeah, I'm excited to get going on them again.
Yeah. Which one are you thinking about?
I mean, they probably shifted so much. I know I'm close with Jim Mahfood, and he goes to, I think Heroes Con is a big one for him.
Yeah, I think Matt and I are gonna go.
Yeah, we want to do the Heroes.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I might try to make that one too. Yeah, I mean, I'd be up for any recommendations too, because I feel like I know Reed Pop bought Emerald City, and that was a really fun one for me, but I don't know what it's like these days.
So I went 2 weeks ago. I think it was now. Overall, I think it was good. The structure is different though. It's like multi-leveled, right? That was different for me coming from like a San Diego Comic-Con or like a MegaCon in Florida, which is just like one flat giant place where you can walk back and forth.
Sure.
But the artist alley I think was pretty good. Yeah, I was sitting next to Mark Russell, and he had sold quite a few books, I think, then, and Merca and also did quite well and all that. Yeah.
Oh, nice. Yeah. That's cool.
Yeah, the MegaCon in Orlando was good. I think that the thing that I've been noticing, at least at the cons that we've gone to, is how much more interested people seem to be in, like if you're at a show, you're not just buying a book isn't as interesting for people. Like they want a sketch. They want something more than just like, I'm just going to buy the book, which I think is cool. And it seemed like it was so busy. The MegaCon, the one in Orlando, was busy. I mean, New York's always a madhouse. We did that last year.
Yeah.
I really want to check out Heroes Con, because I hear Heroes Con is like the most like comics focused of all.
Yeah, that's what I heard as well.
Cedal, who's in the chat on Nerdcrawler and one of our great community members, he said also been to Heroes, and I think Cedal's actually not from the States, so it's a big trip for him to get out there. So the fact that
cool.
I think
it's a huge
it's a big move,
yeah. Huh. Yeah, sold.
And
I should look into that.
Vegas to what? That's Charlotte, right? Charlotte, North Carolina's Heroes.
I think so.
I think that's not
Yeah.
too bad, right?
Yeah.
Well, the nice thing about being in Vegas is there's flights everywhere, right? Like.
Yeah, Vegas is really good. They're trying to get people in and out of here all the time.
Yeah.
I did a library show in Vegas since I've been here. It was pretty small, but it was fun. I guess that's the closest thing I've done to I went to a hentai convention just to walk through recently.
I think I saw that on your story. I was like, I didn't know this was a thing.
Yeah, it's weird. I mean, part of it, it's funny. One of my things for it is years ago, a friend of mine talked me into going to an anime convention, and I felt like such an old man because it was all teenagers dressed in anime costumes, and I was just like, this feels like I'm in a high school. I don't want to be here. And so this one, there was at least like an age limit to the people that went there, and I didn't end up buying it. Like I went with my wife and some of our friends, and they were so excited about. Like a lot of it was like costume focused still,
Yeah.
And and I found a bunch of just like a little too pricey for my blood, but they had a couple places that just had like old comic boxes I went through. But it'd be like Antarctic Press comics for like $35. So it was
Did you
not quite.
did you see any of your anything that you did?
I saw some old issues of Antarctic Press stuff that I'd done some adult comics in.
That's all. You like just sign them and then put them back in the box.
Yeah. That's always an awkward thing, if you run into your comics at a comic store or something, you never want to be like, ahem. There's the guy working the counter. I was like, I don't care.
Like, who are you? Yeah, exactly. Well, yeah, Matt, go ahead.
Nothing.
I always have funny relationships with because I'll have comic stores I'll regularly go into, and oftentimes I'll go into places for years and never tell them that I do comics for a living. And then eventually I'll just end up talking to people at comic stores, and eventually it'll like get to the point where I'm like, I do stuff that you sell, just
We're at like about an hour and 15 or 20. This was awesome. I think I gotta go power down now and start helping the kid go to bed. But
yeah.
Feel free to stay on, guys. I think what we're gonna end up doing though is, Brandon, I don't think we should sell these now. I think maybe we'll just like put them up for auction and let them run for a couple of days, like your previous ones, to get as many as possible. And then I think what we're gonna do actually is we'll just package this up and then drop this on YouTube and kind of have this be the first inaugural episode of like what hopefully will become a recurring show of like Chris and Matt live streaming, drawing, maybe selling some books and stuff. I actually bought a copy of Prophet that I would like to get signed through the stream.
Oh, cool.
So thanks, Brandon. I'm super excited to read it. Actually,
yeah.
I think I had read like such a short snippet of it back at Comicsology time. I was like, I'll just pick it up and check it out.
Yeah, I wonder what you'll think of it. Prophet's always a fun one because especially people know comics and they go into it with the idea of the Liefeld stuff. It's interesting to see. So I'd be interested to hear what you think of it.
Yeah, I'm super excited. Cool, Matt. Anything else on your side?
No, thanks so much for joining us, Brandon. This was fun, and like we'll have to do this again soon.
Yeah, so. This was super fun. Thanks.
Thanks so much for having me on, guys, and thanks everyone watching.
Yeah. Thanks, folks. And for those maybe tuning in on the video on demand version, thanks for checking us out. You can, Brandon, what's anything you want to plug before we drop?
Yeah, I'm on Instagram at Royal Brandon. And I've got a newsletter and a Patreon that people can sign on through that. But yeah, that's about it. And my comics from Image and from Living the Line.
Awesome. And Cedal just asked any auctions. I think they'll be coming up. So there's a couple of. Brand, you want to just show them really fast, maybe, just to close out? The sketch covers that you'll list.
Oh yeah, so I've got the Silverhawks one that I'm probably put up tonight or tomorrow.
That's awesome.
And I got a bunch of blank covers. I got like Thundercats and some Youngblood and things. So I'm gonna, yeah. I mean, if anyone has any ideas of things, because I've been having such a blast on the site that if anyone has any ideas for things that they want, even if they don't want to buy it directly, just feel free to DM me on there and suggest me draw a weird thing because I'm looking for ideas.
Yeah. So for those of you watching, it's his Nerdcrawl username is just Brandon Graham.
Yeah.
So just search him in the search bar, and you should find him. Give him a follow. He's got new sketch covers coming real soon. Cool. All right. Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Take care. And yeah, Matt.
Oh wait, hold on.